Welcome to Social Sessions. Today I am joined with one of Scotland's best actors. He has worked with Bruce Willis, Tom Hardy and many more amazing actors. He's one of the nicest, most grounded people I have ever known. He is the founder of the humanitarian charity Spirit Aid, and all I can say is I'm blessed to know him. He is just an all-round good guy and one of life's beautiful human beings. Welcome, David. How are you?
I'm good. Who are you talking about? I don't recognise that guy. I'm good, thanks, Sean.
So basically what I'm going to do is just kind of take you back to your childhood, David, just growing up in Glasgow. So you were kind of brought up in Brigton to start with. How was that?
Well, I spent the first 2 years of my life on my granny's sofa. So when I was 2, we moved to Bridge. That was in Rockhill. Then we got a room and kitchen in Dalmarnock Road in Bridgeton, stone's throw for Celtic Park. And outside Lavey was a brilliant wee guy. I got to tell this lovely story. So you've got a room and kitchen on one side of the land and a room and kitchen on the other, and you're a single end in the middle.
Right.
And in there lived Mr. Giaconelli. We assumed an Italian guy. He wore a wee black suit every day, wee hat with a wee flat brim, tiny wee guy. And me and my brother were fascinated by him. He never opened his mouth. He'd talk in Italian. Stuff. We'd see him going to his work with his wee briefcase. He'd come in at the end of the day, and then when we were sitting there having our tea, we would hear bang, 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 bang. We thought, what the hell was that? Anyway, we never got to know what it was. About a year later, I came back from school. My wee brother wasn't at school yet, and she says, "Guys, Mr. Giaconelli's dead. Come in and see this." Walked into his room, and every single square inch of his room, the roof, the walls, every single was covered in flattened tin cans.
Wow.
He would get his tea, he'd wash out the can, he'd flatten it with a hammer, get a big 2-inch nail, put it right through the middle. He was building himself a cell of metal.
Where do you think that came from? Maybe like a prisoner of war or something?
Must have been, we never knew anything about him, Sean, which is such a... I want to do a wee movie about Mr. Giaconelli, just a wee short movie.
That'd be brilliant.
Maybe give him a wee backstory or something and why he imprisoned himself in tin cans. It was just, I mean, for a boy of 5, it was like, shit, what's this?
Did it look like a prison cell? Was that what it
Just
looked
looked like a shiny steel box, an aluminium box. He'd taken all the covers off, all the paper and stuff off the tins of beans and soup and stuff. Washed them, flattened them, hammered them into the wall.
That's mental, isn't it?
Yeah.
Aye, that'd be good to do a wee film about that. That'd be brilliant.
I'm playing Mr. Giaconelli. Aye, then we went to the drum. Then my ma she was a wonderful woman. I mean, an angel barely disguised as a human being. So any work I do, humanitarian work I do, is the inspiration is my ma. And then she came back one day and says, "Boys, I've got keys for the drum. I've got keys for the drum." We moved into a new house and it was brilliant. There was no houses. Well, there was hardly any houses. There were no roads, no shops, no nothing, just mud and freshly painted. You could smell the plaster. You could smell the distemper. We had an inside lavy. We had an inside coal. What did you call these things you put the coal in? Inside the house, can't I remember?
Furnace, no.
It was just a cupboard. I was like with a half door that the guys used to tip all the coal in.
Aye, like kind of same thing as
it was a coal bunker.
Like it's a ship.
A coal bunker, but it was inside your house.
Right.
Aye.
So, what was that like? Obviously moving, because I know obviously there'd been Glasgow was kind of rough all the way through. It's always been a kind of rough city, but so moving from that kind of rough area to Drumchapel, was there a big difference in kind of class with the people there, or?
No difference in class. We were all working class and we'd all been moved out of the aging tenements in the city centre and moved out to the housing schemes, so, like Castlemilk and Easterhouse and all that, the post-war industrial estates. But it was a wonderland.
Aye.
We had fields, we had coos, we had sheep, we had wheat fields, we had burns, we had places to play, trees to climb. It was fantastic. We were never in. Do
you think
fantastic place to grow up? From then until about 10 or 12, it was a great place to grow up. And then trouble began to start, and because in the beginning people looked after their gardens. My mum and dad, they're a wee bit out the back court. They grew tatties, they grew onions, they grew carrots, they grew tomatoes, they grew lettuce and cabbage and everything. My mum would say, "Run down and bring us up some tatties for dinner, son." For your tea. It was fresh, just out the ground. Brilliant. But then after about 10 years or something, it just kind of went tits up in a way, which was a shame.
Because Drumchapel's obviously kind of a rough area now. And obviously we speak about this, I've spoken about this a few times, but obviously in prison, like there's a lot of people, I've met a lot of people from Drumchapel, but never aimed for like Bears Den or never aimed for Jordan Hill or anything like that. Do you know what I mean, Davey? So obviously, for moving for the kind of drum chat, how did you end up kind of getting into acting and stuff? How did that come about?
Well, I failed everything at school. I get kicked out of school at 16, so I packed a little bag and went hitchhiking around Scotland. Then I came back, my dad says, right, you've got to start Monday. He was an electrician in a steel yard up in Possil, steel roofing company. And he said, you got to start Monday. I said, what do you mean you got to start Monday? He said, you start Monday, we need the fucking money. So I started as an apprentice template maker amongst 1,500 men, wage slaves, hard-working, hard-drinking men who were just wage slaves. And I did that for 2 years. And then I walked up, my unconscious took me up the steps. I had to get a bus into town to change and then go out to the drum. I got a bus into town and walked up the steps of the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama, up there, burst through the registrar's door, and a voice says, I want to be an actor. And I thought, who said that? And I thought, there's only me and the woman behind the desk, and that was it.
So obviously you've had an amazing career. Was there a class difference between that and drama school and stuff like that, David? Was there?
No, yeah, in drama school, yeah, it was probably one or two working class boys, two working class people in my year. When I started in the SITS, we had 24 young actors just out of drama school, and I was the only working class one. I was the only Scottish one. The rest were English and middle class. So it was a real difference. And for the first year, I thought, do I really want to do this? Is this the world I want to be in? I didn't share their values or anything about life. And you're still growing. I was still only a teenager. Right. You know, you're forming your political beliefs, your moral choices you make. But I just never felt comfortable. I always felt it was going to be fun out. That imposter syndrome, that lasted for about 30 years or something. I'm going to be fun out.
Aye.
Because it's no for the likes of us. But in those days, Sean, you didn't get an awful lot of working class actors coming into the industry.
No.
In a sense, it was during the 60s that working class people really began to come into the industry in a big way and go to drama school and stuff. And because the industry was fucked. You know, when I was a teenager, you had a choice of jobs. You did, you know, whereas, 10 years later, young people didn't have those choice of jobs. So it was easier for them to say, hey, I want to go to drama school. I want to be a musician. I want to be a singer.
It was all trades, wasn't it? Everybody, you needed a trade behind you, and there was obviously a kind of religious kind of division as well back then, wasn't there? Did you see any of that at
I didn't really see any of that. I mean, I was born into a Proddy family, seriously lapsed Proddies. They never went to church or anything. But my dad was a Partick Thistle supporter. He hated sectarianism and bigotry.
Aye.
My granda, on my mother's side, he was watty. He was a wee blue nose. Oh my God, he was a wee blue nose, really embittered. And me and my brother, one Hogmanay, we stood up and sang Wild Rover, an innocent folk song. And he thought it was an IRA recruiting song. He went red for the neck up, get redder and redder and redder. Steam was coming out his ears, and he barred us for his house for 2 years. Couldn't go to my granny's house for 2 years. He was a windy cleaner. He cleaned the windies in Rockhill Hospital. And he used to start a new year at one end of the hospital, and it took him a whole year to get around all the windies.
Wow. That's a lot of windies.
That's a lot of windies.
So you're kind of one of your big roles that I kind of obviously want to talk about was Jimmy Boyle in A Sense of Freedom. Amazing film. I loved it. It's obviously a kind of classic in the prison. Everybody loves it. How did that come about? How did that kind of come about to play that, Davey?
Well, when I left drama school, I spent years at the Glasgow SITS playing Hamlet twice, Lady Macbeth, Nijinsky, Troilus, all these brilliant classical leads. And then Giles Havergal, who was the artistic director, was asked to go along to the special unit as part of the arts therapy. That's where somebody gave Jimmy Boyle a lump of clay and he turned out into a sculptor. Mm-hmm. You give people a creative release and it can change the whole course of their lives. Mm-hmm. So I'd go along with Giles every week, and we'd do improvisations with these guys who'd been starved, kept naked, covered in their own shit in cages up in Peterhead and places, prisons like that. So they had no sense of social grace or social behaviour. So we did improvisations with them and fun, just about chatting to a lassie in a cafe, chatting to a guy in a pub. How do you converse with people? When you've been, Jimmy alone was kept in solitary confinement for 2 years against all the rules and regulations of the present authorities in this country. Oh, no, it does. And in Europe, unheard of. So then you're releasing somebody for for that semi-naked, isolated state, going, boom, hey, there's people. How do I talk to them? How do I behave?
Totally. I think if you look at the psychology behind that, if you put a bear or a dog, anything like that, you cage them up within a couple of months, or they go insane. Do you know what I mean? So there is no difference between human beings, I don't think. But obviously that role that you played, Jimmy Boyle was obviously a kind of controversial figure at that time. How did the media react to that? Was there a big did they have anything to say about it?
Everybody was against the movie, and it took one man. It was, and I'm going to forget, Jeremy Isaacs, the man who set up Channel 4 in the beginning. He was the one who had the idea to commission the book, went to STV, and over the head of drama in STV, Robert Love, who didn't want it to be made. Even inside the industry, they didn't want it to be made. He went to the head of STV, the managing director, and said, we've got to do this. So we made it. Every single newspaper in Scotland was against it. I mean, the Daily Record would run, editorials saying this shameful film should not be allowed to be shot in the streets of Glasgow, blah, 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 blah. I had reporters sitting outside my flat in Maryhill all the time we were shooting it. They would follow me. They would follow us to locations. We would turn up at, say, Springburn Borough Hall with legal permission to get into shoot a court scene. It'd all be padlocked, chained up, 2 cops standing outside the door, refusing us entry. And then the whole day would be spent, Jeremy Isaac would sit in the caravan, the production caravan, and send lawyers' letters back and forward to him and the council saying, we've got legal permission to enter this building, what you're doing is wrong, blah, 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 blah. So it was like a battle the whole way through. 2 o'clock in the morning, we're filming in Shettleston, in the middle of a gash site. There's no tenements anywhere. Just me and my gang in the street. The camera's on one side of the street and we're on the other. Fire engine, me-mo, pulls up right between the camera and us. Just sits there for half an hour. Why?
With the siren on?
There's no a fire within 100 fucking miles of where we were.
Did they have the siren on?
Aye.
That's outrageous. It just shows the... I mean,
the authorities were scared.
Sense of Freedom's a film about... it's not... I mean, it's not... There's no glamorising crime in it.
No,
I mean,
no.
It's not a film that you could... It's not like Goodfellas or a film... It's about a story about a guy that comes from a kind of impoverished... I mean, I'll let you tell like where the story comes from. But so what was the kind of story behind Jimmy Boyle? I know it was kind of... It was an impoverished... It was for the Gorbals, wasn't it?
Aye, it was for the Gorbals. Aye, but I mean, if you grow up in the Gorbals and poverty, what chance have you got to break out there? You become a footballer, you become an actor, you become a rock star, or you become a gangster. He became a gangster.
Aye.
And he became an enforcer for, money lenders and all the rest. Pretty ruthless. I imagine he was loved and he was hated in equal measure, but it was his way of breaking out, his way of expressing himself.
Aye.
And saying, I'm more than this. And he turned out to be more than that. Of course he did.
Aye. I think that's
extraordinary talent.
A lot, you find a lot, especially with some of the guys army in prison who were like in about organised crime and guys you would read about in newspapers and all that. They've always got a lot of them have got a lovely side to them. A lot of them have got a bad side to them as well. But most of the time, if you just keep away from them, or kind of just keep it at a kind of friendship level, they're fine with that.
There is that code of honour amongst thieves, amongst gangsters, isn't there?
Oh, aye. Definitely.
And it works, and it's a hard code, it's a good code, it's a moral code. People don't believe it, but there is.
But I think Sense of Freedom showed what can happen if you treat somebody like a human being. I think that's what the film shows. Mm-hmm. It shows that if you show, even just let somebody, as you say, express themselves in a different way, more creatively.
I think the most important scene in the film is at the end when he's moved to the special unit. They didn't know how to cope with him. He was the most violent prisoner incarcerated in prison in Scotland, and they thought, he's going to kill one of us or we're going to kill him. What are we going to do? So they created the special unit. And I think the best scene in the film is when the chief nursing officer, wonderful man. God, I've forgotten his name. This is going to be terrible of me. Ken Murray and Jimmy Ball were the 2 driving forces behind the special unit. And the scene at the end where he comes in, I had just arrived and got a parcel, and he hands me a penknife and walks out to Peter and leaves him with a penknife. He goes, what the fuck's this? Somebody's just given me a knife. It was an officer. Then he begins cutting open his parcel in slow motion, doing, and then his music comes in. And that's a brilliant moment. That's the moment of his liberation, of his freedom. Somebody trusted me enough to give me a knife and know that I'm not going to use it against them.
Aye. I think obviously the special unit was controversial in many ways, but there was so many success stories for for the special unit.
Aye.
Did you get to go into it, David?
I was an official visitor for 7 years until I made a sense of freedom, and then the Home Office banned me because I was too dangerous.
Oh, God. So you've been in there 7 years.
I've been getting up regularly, at least twice a week. I'd go up to talk to them all. I remember spending time, I was playing Hamlet, rehearsing Hamlet at the Sits. I went into Larry Winter's cell, and Larry was an extraordinary IQ of 145 or something, really bright man. And he says, Davey, just me and him and his Peter, and he goes, sit in your ass, I'll tell you about Hamlet. And he gives me the psychological insight into that man's working. Brilliant. Better than any theatre director ever could.
Aye.
Or any Shakespeare expert.
So, obviously, like, looking back and seeing the way the prison system is now, we were talking the other day, I was talking to James Docherty on a podcast the other day, and we were basically saying about bringing a kind of rehabilitation kind of setting to prisons, which probably a special unit kind of is.
Should have been done 50 years ago.
I know.
Sean.
I know.
Rehabilitation is meant to be part of the penal ethos, isn't it?
Aye. Well, if you look at their value system is, you can go on the website and check it. Their value system's like, I can't remember, but it's like integrity, communication, everything that is no, basically. And the way I describe it, and I describe it quite a lot, is prison is like, if you're outside, see, like your social behaviours and your social norms, you need to flip that to realise how toxic prison can be. And violence is celebrated in prison, drug taking celebrated in prison, other aspects that you wouldn't have outside are all celebrated in prison, and there's nobody showing any different. So you're just churning guys out, and some guys are coming out worse. Most of the time, guys are coming out worse now.
Aye, the short-term offenders come out worse, I think, for sure.
And I think during COVID, obviously, that kind of proved they were able to release X amount of prisoners because of COVID. Because people that were incarcerated, they released because of obviously the dangers of COVID. So they were able to like half the prison population, like overnight. So they people clearly weren't that much a danger to society, or they wouldn't have been released. So it just shows you like these short-term sentences are kind of nonsense. They don't really make sense, if you know what I mean, like in any way. But obviously taking you back. So what was the best moment you seen then in the special unit, Davey? What was your kind of
just men releasing their creativity? I mean, Jimmy became a sculptor. Larry Winters, he wrote poetry, he wrote songs, he played music. They all had a creative outlet. Even two of them, their creative outlet was cooking.
Aye.
They could go out shopping.
Aye.
A prison officer bring it back, and they could cook. You know, I remember the famous Gorbal salads. I used to look forward to it. It's a brilliant salad that they made in there every week. And they took great joy in it. And that was their creative outlet. It was cooking for the first time in their lives.
I know, it's just showing people.
And the political energy, you know, the political thoughts that were going on, you know, challenging the status quo, questioning all levels of politics was great. I mean, I used to say that I learned more from going in there than they got from me going in. You know, I came back empowered and uplifted by having spent time with them. Because of what limited resources they had, they were making the most of it. No, an extraordinary place. I think the great sadness was that, when they closed it down, there was not the political will to keep it going, and there wasn't the money. Because if you stand up in the hustings and say you want to be elected to Parliament and you're going to, and you advocate penal reform, they're going to go, fuck off.
I know.
What would the cost of living? What would the price of my mortgage? What about this, that, and the next? I can't get a job.
I know.
You know, it's a no-brainer. You're on a losing wicket.
This is kind of obviously that this podcast is all about. It's kind of trying to highlight this and kind of try to get that kind of the public kind of back on some sort of kind of level where they can see or even kind of have a wee bit of empathy or a wee bit of compassion for some of the most damaged people that society has. And I know that people deserve to go to prison. I know that. I'm not trying to say people do bad things, and I'm not trying to say, but there's also a huge aspect of background trauma, addiction that is kind of wheeling
Where
this
does
forward.
all crime come from, Sean? It comes from poverty.
I know.
That's the bottom line.
Totally.
If you're poor and you're desperate, you're going to resort to crime. You're going to rob a bank. You're going to hit an old lady over the head or whatever, steal her handbag. That's the reality. Eradicate poverty and you eradicate 99% of crime.
Totally. I totally agree with you. And sometimes, I mean, obviously, sometimes you go like to say, do they want to change it? Because you go, the jobs that are in it, right, that you've got like police, you've got lawyers, you've got judges, you've got mental health nurses, you've got addiction nurses, you've got massive third sector. See, if you were to eradicate crime overnight, there is a huge element of employment that go into that. So you sometimes go, as the world, are we conditioned that the working class, we need that impoverished, we need these impoverished places, which is sad. But do you think that's a possibility? Do you think that's what some, like the
So it's a bigger picture that they're creating the poverty. They're creating the poverty to keep them on work.
Aye, creating the poverty. No, not to keep them at work, but no really wanting to eradicate it because they need the working class, and then they need the bad guy to have their penal system running, which keeps a lot of jobs and keeps a lot of people in elite positions, like your judges and stuff.
Maybe I hadn't thought about it on that level, Sean, but you might be right.
It's something that I always look at and go, why are they not trying more? Like, why can they not go to like Bears Den and go, right, what's happening here? Why is it different? And you'll see a lot of youth clubs, you'll see a lot of this. And then I know that people have tried but you go into some places in like Rickazy, there's nothing. Like absolutely nothing. And you're like, what does he expect these boys to do? They've got no money, they've got nothing, and you're just, as soon as they get in gangs, they're going to follow the leader. And the leader 9 times out of 10 is the best fighter and the one that can control the thing. That's what it's like when you're a wee guy, do you know what I mean? No, I just think it's quite sad. I think it's sad when you look at and obviously we've spoke about Malawi, which is, I know, is kind of close to your heart, Davey. We spoke about their kind of sense of community and how there's no much crime there.
The sense of youth justice, it exists in each community. We work with 10 different, a community of 15,000 people. There are 10 villages amongst the 15,000. Each one's got a chief. Now, if a young guy does wrong or he's kicking off in some way, the parents will take him to the chief, and the chief will give his or her words of wisdom and say, come on, clean your act up, kid, you're in trouble. If that doesn't work, they take him and the chief to the senior chief, because there's a senior chief over the 10 villages. Aye. If that doesn't work, they take him to the district chief. If those processes don't work, they then hand the kid over to the cops.
Aye.
But 99% it works. And I've been working in Malawi since 2008. That's now, 12 years?
Aye.
One kid has been handed over to the police in 12 years.
Crazy.
They've absorbed it amongst the community, peer pressure and familiar pressure and all the rest of it. But then again, you hinted at it earlier, there's a great strength of, the strength of family and community is really, really strong in places like Malawi and Palestine, Afghanistan, three of the poorest countries in the world where I work. But that strength of family and community is really, really strong. We've lost it in this country. We've lost the soul of this country somewhere down the line. Oh,
I agree with you. There's no compassion. There's no. A guy told me a sad story the other day. I can't remember if it was James Docherty. Told me a sad story the other day. He said there was a guy committed suicide in San Francisco. He was over in America doing work with guys, and the guy basically had wrote on a bit of paper, I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to walk up to the whatever bridge it is it Silver Hingy Bridge or whatever, Golden Gate Bridge, and I'm going to fling myself off that. If somebody smiles at me or says hello on the way there, I won't do it. And he killed himself, he died.
Nobody smiled.
I looked at him. And you kind of go like that, didn't you? Like, and walking through Glasgow, I feel like I walk through with my partner Fiona and stuff like that, and she's always kind of, I mean, she's got a massive heart as well, do you know what I mean? But sometimes I'll go and speak to, if we're in a rush, and I'll see somebody and I'll go and give them a fag, and she'll be like, Sean, come on, we need to hurry up. And I'm like, I know, but I'll be talking to this homeless guy, and then Fiona will end up talking about, I could end up talking to this guy for like 5-10 minutes, do you know what I mean? We're in a rush. But just the whole thing.
But that would have made his day.
Aye, it does.
They stopping and talking to him.
You can see it in the glow. And now you walk through Glasgow, every single doorway has got somebody sitting sleeping in it. It's so, and everybody's just walking by.
Homeless people are dying in this city every year.
I know.
This is meant to be a big-hearted city.
I know. And you've got people with £1 billion in a bank account. Do you know what I mean? It is sad. It's so sad. But what do you think the government could do to kind of change that, David? What do you think?
Eradicate poverty. It's a no-brainer.
I totally agree with you. How do we go about that?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not a politician, Sean. I don't know. Can you tell me how you eradicate poverty? Then don't ask me, because I haven't got a fucking clue.
No, I know.
I mean, I'm the one standing up in Parliament saying, let's do this, let's do that. They're just a bunch of wasters.
I know. That Rishi Sunak, he said the other day, I've never had a working class friend. And he's running the country. Do you know what I mean? It's bizarre. But so I'll take you to your own kind of charity, Davy, Spirited. Can you tell us a wee bit about Spirited?
Well, I started it because the world's going to hell in a banana skin, and I think it's incumbent on every single one of us to do what we can to make it a better place. So I started off, we run projects in Scotland, Afghanistan, Palestine and Malawi, feed 2,000 kids a day in Malawi, got a women's training workshop, built a school extension, run 2 mobile clinics in the Hindu Kush Mountains in Afghanistan that look after about 45 isolated communities, prison groups, women's groups, a small school for 200 kids. The school in Malawi, by the way, are graduates. Now, I sat down with the 10 chiefs in 2008 and said, they're just illiterate peasant farmers. If the rains come, they can grow maize and feed their kids. If it doesn't come, or if there's floods or droughts, whatever, it goes tits up. So I said, how can we help you improve your human and natural resources in partnership with Spirited? And they said, feed our high school kids. High school in Africa is not compulsory and has to be paid for.
Right.
You pay £8 a term, maybe it's £36 a year. In a barter economy, they don't have that. So a lot of kids leave and go and work in the tea and coffee plantations for slave labour wages, and that's them for life. I mean, it's a horrific existence. So we started a lunch for maize and beans and vegetables. When we started it, the school roll was about 200 kids. After 2-3 weeks, the school roll went up to 500 because the kids were coming back off the tea plantations. They were getting a meal. They were continuing their education. Now we've got something like 70-odd. The graduates are 70-odd nurses. We've got 20-odd midwives. We've got a midwife manager. We've got engineers. We've got lab technicians. We've got police and army officers. It's been a huge success story, and that costs about £13 per child per year.
And you say you're not an amazing human being. No, but listen, David. This is what you've been quite lucky with in life, and this is what we need. We need more people to give back.
Aye, the world needs heroes, no arseholes.
Aye.
I want to print T-shirts saying the world needs heroes, or the world needs heroes, no politicians, one or the other.
Aye.
Probably make a fortune. We do. We need heroes everywhere. You don't have to go to war-torn countries like Afghanistan or Palestine to work to help folk. You can do that in your own street, your own community. As you say, you and Fiona stop and talk to a homeless person in the street. That's like $1 million to them.
I know. And it's obviously
it's the fact that somebody cares. Somebody takes time to say, are you okay? How can I help you? How are you doing?
I know. And it's the same in prison. So many people in prison that are that have not got any family, that have got no friends outside, addicted to drugs, and then they get kicked out with £70. First thing they go do is buy drugs, and then they'll get. I mean, I know guys that have got out for tours, literally go out for tours and just come back in because they don't feel safe outside.
They can't cope.
They just go like, oh God, like, and it's so sad to watch. And as you says, looking at Malawi, who I don't know, like, but I would probably say is probably one of the poorest countries in the world.
Aye.
And then look what happens when you just show you give them a wee bit of money, and look what they do with it. And look at what they have. See them. I mean, that was £13 million, I think, for that cycling thing that's in Glasgow now.
13 million.
13 million. And think what could Spirit do with 13 million?
I don't object to that as much as I object to spending £6 billion on huge aircraft carriers that are not built for fisheries protection round our coast, Sean. They're built to generate imperialist wars around the world. So, I mean, you've got one of our aircraft carriers. I mean, we can't afford the airplanes to go on them. I mean, isn't that stupid? But and even if we do, we've got to ask the Americans permission to fire them. But each aircraft carrier has more firepower than most of the countries in the world. That's the truth. In that one aircraft carrier, we get two of them.
I know. What is it?
Now, what do we need them for?
I know.
Why do we need that firepower that can defeat most countries in the world? Who are we under threat from?
I know. I think when you look at, obviously everybody's got different political views and all that, and you need to kind of be careful. Well, you shouldn't need to be careful the way you think, but at me certainly, I've seen when in my work, I see a lot of soldiers coming out of work who have been in prison, who have went to war to Afghanistan, Iraq, done a tour, won't talk about what they've seen. Mm-hmm. It's that bad. They won't talk about it, so they can't open up. So that's all just canned up inside. They're using substances to dull that out. Then when they're under the substances, it's just anger that's coming out because that's what they're projecting. And then before you know it,
betrayed.
And they really betrayed. It's like the amount of times it's kind of all they say.
I mean, the fact that who was it? Who's the guy who does? What's his name anyway? Who started Help for Heroes?
Aye.
We have to start a charity to help the armed services that have fought on our behalf, whether we agree with it or not.
No, I know.
That's a joke. The government should be looking after them.
Well, I remember, I don't know the guy that done Fahrenheit 9/11. I think it was Michael Moore. He went over to America. Obviously, he was stays in America, but he went to kind of Congress and stuff like that, and he stood outside Congress, and he was just saying to all the politicians are there, is your son fighting in Iraq? And it, like, none of them, no. Like, he's like, why don't you go? Like, and they were all saying, like, just ignoring him. But then when you go to the kind of, like, the Bronx and the kind of California, the poor bits, there's people walking about like army trying to recruit young people to go over to these places, and basically, honestly, it was only a couple of weeks ago, the guy said, there was a soldier in, he didn't really talk much, and he said, they taught me to be a killing machine and then just left me. And I was like, I says, what do you mean they taught you to be a killing machine? He went, just exactly what I said, mate. But he was kind of a wee bit aggressive, so I just kind of let him. I went, all right. I says, obviously we do CBT work. I'm not interested in that. And I'm like, I don't even know where to start with this guy here. Like, I really didn't. He kind of took me off guard a wee bit.
Years and years ago, I saw a really powerful American documentary with the guys that fought in Vietnam. And you remember the My Lai massacre?
Aye.
Well, I mean, I can't remember. They killed dozens of villagers. And this guy, big black American soldier, he said, I saw two people running across a field. One person with a bag in their back, and I shot them, and it was a mother with a child. And he said, I've never gotten over that. And he said, look, and this was years after the war, and then the camera pulled back. He said, pull back. He sat in front of his coffee table. His coffee table was just covered in medicines of all kinds. He said, I take these every single day just to be able to get out of my bed and walk out my front door. Serious drug addict just to cope with the trauma he'd been through. That's no help.
You're turning guys into killing machines there to kill kids and stuff like that, and then when they come back, they're heroes, right? Which I'm not saying anything about individual soldiers, because I'm talking about the army as a whole, if you know what I mean. But I don't see the difference why they would expect anybody to be less damaged or less traumatised. if that makes sense. Like why a guy who
It
committed...
does. I mean, I don't know how Joe Biden's not traumatised. He's just shipping cluster bombs to Ukraine. Now, I've seen cluster bombs that work in Afghanistan. They're brutal. They explode in hundreds and hundreds of bits of fragmented metal that can cut through concrete. They can just slice through a human body and reduce it to pulp in split seconds. They paint them yellow, which are the colours of the aid packages that drop from the air. So kids run, they can lie on exploded in the earth. Kids run up, go, oh, it's an aid package, woof, and then they've gone. Over 100 countries in the world now ban cluster bombs, including Britain. Joe Biden's just sent shipments over to Ukraine. Putin is now saying, right, we're going to use cluster bombs. They're the most brutal, indiscriminate means of killing that we've ever invented.
I kind of hesitate to go into my political views because I've got a lot of kind of ways of thinking about what's going on in Russia and Ukraine and that, and I just think it's so sad, the whole thing, but...
They've lost 500,000 men.
I know.
Russia's lost 300,000, Ukraine's lost 200,000. That's just the soldiers. And that's not civilians.
It's like elite people playing Risk or something, like a computer game. It's like, do you know what I mean? The only way it's human life is if they don't recognise the human life that's actually getting torn apart in all stages. And I think somebody told me that in Ukraine now, the guys are getting made to, I'm sure they're getting made to fight, like, and their wives and that are getting shipped out or something, but they're getting made to fight. Oh,
the men can't leave the country. They haven't been able to since the beginning. No. They've never been able to leave the country. They have to stay and fight.
I mean, it's like, how do you get these people, like, how can you say Tony Blair, right? Like, how can you say, look at some of the people they've put in prison, some of the people that I know that are in prison. I've seen guys getting put in prison. I've seen guys getting 5 years for a £50 bag of heroin, right? But then Tony Blair
walks free.
Admittedly told us that there was...
He lied for 3 years. Him and Bush lied for 3 years.
And how many people died in that? Over 1 million? And
I don't remember.
There's...
You should read Neil Mackay's book, The War on Truth. That's the 3 years leading up to the Iraq War, how Blair and Bush lied through their teeth.
Aye. I'll definitely read it. Obviously, it's one of the things I've always looked into, and I know it's the whole thing is, the whole thing's just stinking into it, the whole thing, like that. When you look at, even with Biden now, I don't even think he really knows what's going on. I think there's other people pulling the strings with him.
Oh, there always are.
There's a higher force playing, but I mean, that's going into a whole new realm of stuff. But so I'll kind of take it back a wee bit to kind of like, so what's probably like a moment that stood out for you in Malawi, like with Spirited and stuff, which like an amazing, something a wee story that, like, it's just been something that was amazed you?
Every day is full of amazing stories. I remember talking to a wee lassie when we started the feeding programme. Now, because the kids through malnutrition and vitamin deficiencies, they don't grow at the normal rate. So this wee lassie, who might have been 13, she looked about 8, and she was lying under a tree. The kids would go and get their lunch and sit under the tree for shade. And she was just lying over, and I wonder if she was okay. And they can speak a bit of English. I said, are you okay? And she said, yeah. Now I have food in my tummy. Now I feel safe. Now I can go to sleep.
Oh.
Before that, she never felt safe enough to go to sleep. Because she had food in her belly, she could sleep. Another story is recent. I've been out in Malawi recently because they were hit by a hurricane, the third one since Christmas. And it wiped out like 65 families and stuff in our villages. And one young lassie, she was away, she had to board in her high school because they're spaced quite far away from the villages. So a lot of kids have to travel.
Aye.
They stay in dormitories. She couldn't get back to her village for 3 weeks, got back, found 65, her whole village was wiped out, absolutely wiped out. House had gone, she lost her mother, her father, her brother and her 2 sisters. And she jumped into the raging river and committed suicide. Because there was nothing to live for. Now, people think that's a bit extreme, but in Africa, if you lose your parents, the rest of the community will bring you up. You're adopted by the rest of the community. So you always have people and relatives around you.
Aye.
Everyone had been wiped out. So she didn't know, everyone she knew on earth had been wiped out by that storm. So who was she turned to? She's going to go to the next village, or the village over the hill. So she thought, my life's over.
That's so sad. It's just,
But what strikes me, you ask me, it's just their constant dignity in the face of horrific circumstances and the effects of our effect on the climate emergency that's just ripping that country apart. They produce less than 1% of global warming, but they're in the receiving end of all our excess living. But they're humble, they're happy.
Am I right in saying that we
people.
kind of, I remember I studied politics for 3 years, right? But I know that I can remember loads of it, but I know there was something that amazed me, that like places like Malawi, America, China, Russia, whoever, UK, we buy their, like, you know, every country gets a kind of a carbon emission like allowance. We buy other countries, then we
so
send
we can
them.
keep destroying the planet. Aye.
Then we send them all the nuclear waste and all that. We send them, dig up their soil, put it on their soil, and you're just like,
China's bought up huge tracts of land in Africa to grow food for the Chinese, not for the Africans.
man, I bet it's off fenced staff and everything and stuff.
No,
so
really. I mean, you're not going to go in and carve down a field full of wheat or maize or whatever. No.
No, but what we could, by the sounds of it, is bring back some of the values that you see in Malawi and stuff and that you talk about.
But how do you bring them back, Sean? Somebody will be like, so let's bring them back. Would you buy them off the shelf? No, they have to be engendered from birth. You know, whatever you're born, it's stamped in your arse. You know, poor, working class, whatever. Mm-hmm. We've got to change all that, and it's not a case of just bring it back. It has to be taught. It has to be shown. It has to be examples of how it can work. I would take a couple of generations. I mean, I've got great hope in young people. I've got great faith in the young people of the world that they're going to save this planet and get it back on the track again. But they've got a tough job. But I think for my generation, we're fucked.
No, I think, I mean, Lord Turnbull, he done a thing there, and I think it's a great thing what he done, but he basically put a kind of an age ban, but it wasn't a ban, it was like a kind of guideline for under 25s. Do not put them in prison. It's a last resort, put them in prison. Mm-hmm. Don't put them in under 25. A lot of people kicking off, oh, that's terrible, blah, blah, I shouldn't have been doing this. But prison is so damaging, so damaging. And I don't know, me and Fiona are really big fans of kind of Gabor Mate. And he actually talks about, James Docherty went into it in great detail the other day, but he kind of talks about, right for the womb, right, even if as a fetus, the baby gets stressed, see if it's stressed out parents. So the kind of capitalist kind of way that we're kind of living in, the society we're living in now, everybody's stressed out. Everybody's like, there's so many people just trying to meet ends meet. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Your wonderful charity is doing stuff at home as well.
It's just a sticking plaster.
I know. I agree with you. I think this generation, you need to kind of probably write off and hope that what we're teaching the kids and stuff they know is the right stuff that we're kind of going through. But sometimes I think they try and hijack that as well. They hijack the education system and then they start bringing in stuff to try and hang it. But I think that you can go to different platforms now. You can go to kind of the internet and stuff like that for news. I mean, the Daily Record, you're not going to get the news for the Daily Record. They don't tell you anything. I don't think I've seen a positive story in the Daily Record.
No, you don't get them. Or the Herald.
You do just read that and you're like, I don't buy them anymore, but you just read them and you're like, it's doom and gloom. It's like poverty, next page murder, next page rape, next page crime rise, next page addiction, and you're like, you end up reading it, you're just like, what's the point? You know what I mean? Like, and I think I sometimes think it's meant to do that. It's meant to kind of bring the mood down, these papers and stuff like that.
They don't want us too educated. They
exactly.
don't want us to get above our station.
Exactly.
We might ask questions.
Aye. It's kind of like in prison when you go to education, and it's so sad to watch some guys to do peer mentoring and stuff like that, and you would go up and some guys would be working through, like, I don't know, like maybe primary 7, first year level stuff, maybe even lower. It would be like just like spell dog, spell cat, like stuff that you would teach kids, do you know what I mean? And they're like struggling, but see, even when you used to show them a wee bit, because obviously they're embarrassed as men, can't do it. So you show them a wee bit of kind of humility and go, no, listen, man, it's...
Sean, 20% of the population of this country, most of the Western countries, 20% of our populations are functionally illiterate. That means they have the reading and writing skills of an 11-year-old.
Wow.
20%.
The UK?
In the UK and the States, right across Europe.
Wow.
Us in America are the worst.
That's actually quite a shocking statistic.
A reading and writing skill of an 11-year-old and you're a 35-year-old man or a 65-year-old woman or whatever. That's tough.
Oh, definitely. It's really high. It's like a fifth. But well, I'm going to take you into shooters now, Davey, because that's obviously where I got the pleasure to meet you. Working in Addiewell, which was an amazing project. I was just so gutted that never got to take half and never got to do it again. But
Addiewell's fault.
So listen, Addiewell's fault for a lot of things, you know what I mean? It's not a great prison. Can you tell us how shooters come about and stuff, Davey? How did shooters come about?
Just because all my life I've been involved in work in prisons. I'd start with the special unit. I would take rehearsals up there for productions I was doing. I would take productions up there and perform in prisons. I've always had an empathy for those that we lock up. So I just wanted to give them, Shooters is one of the first projects I started when I created Spirited. I thought I want to give people, particularly young people, a voice through the medium of film to express themselves. And it was natural to go into prison and give prisoners a voice and bring them out themselves in some way and challenge them in different ways. And it's been really, really rewarding. I mean, it's been an amazing. I mean, we've worked in, 7 prisons in Scotland and made a big difference.
It was an amazing project, and I mean, it's just a shame that it was obviously small numbers, not small, but like small compared to kind of the prison population. But we were talking the other day about me and James Dockett were talking about obviously how would you go about reforming the prison system, make it smaller units where you can kind of interact with more people. What I seen in Shooters was something that I probably have never seen before. How good yous were at getting people to drop that prison kind of hard man mentality that you kind of get. Was there anything you used in way to, like, with a method to do that, or was it just natural to you?
That's just natural to us, because, like, you know, you do a theatre job, you do a TV or a film job, and you're a company of actors that come together. You've got to break down the barriers. You've never met them before in your life. Suddenly you're doing intimate work with them. You've meant to be married to them for the last 25 years. How do you do that? You take shortcuts. You strip away the facades, you get rid of all the shit, and you get to the core, and that's when you start to build. And that's just what we did with prisoners. Just build up that trust. We're no threat to you. We're on your side. And it works a treat.
Aye. Because some of the stuff, like obviously with the slow walking.
Now that's amazing, how prisoners slow walking.
I would
in slow motion.
That would never happen.
Acting in slow motion, reacting in slow motion. No, they were brilliant.
I'd have swore down dead that would never happen in a prison setting. But obviously...
But you see, but young David, now he uses that in rehearsals when he's rehearsing stage plays and stuff.
Right.
Slow walking. So that's part of his rehearsal process.
Is that just to kind of break down so you don't feel stupid?
Everybody comes in, everybody's got the stresses and strains of normal life. You come into a rehearsal room, you've got to leave all the shit behind.
Aye.
You can't bring that in with you. So that's just 2 or 3 minutes at the beginning, or 5 minutes where you just chill. It's like a meditation. It's like a mindfulness. Strip away all the garbage in your head. You're just a human being. There's a human being there. There's a human being there. There's a camera. Let's play.
Aye. I know it was an amazing project, and obviously the work that came out was amazing as well. And it was
the
sad
films were
that
brilliant,
we
aye.
couldn't even we weren't allowed to get it out for whatever reason, and there was a lot of other stuff. But I mean, maybe we can get to show that, and maybe at the end we could get the shooters video and maybe put it on the end.
could get what shooters have got it.
Get it, and we could maybe get that. But when we had you obviously in the hall, Davey, right, and that was funny. That was obviously like we had you in the hall, and there was a lot of boys kind of at the start, kind of like obviously like, I would never do that. I would never be involved in the shooters. That's blah blah blah. Just the kind of prison mentality. How quickly did we break that down?
Pretty quick.
That was half a day.
Aye.
Half a day, and we had people kind of walking up and going, "Hey, can I get a wee part just on and on the phone and all that?" Remember, Big Dava wanted every part that was going at the end. But again, was there anything, or was that just natural again,
Just
Dave?
natural
Just
for
showing
us, aye.
humanity again. So it is literally amazing just to
It's
see.
no rocket science.
I know, it isn't it? And did you ever get any kind of for the staff? Was there ever any problems with them? Did they give you problems or anything?
Only when we wanted to come back again, and they made it impossible for us to come back. Even though your deputy governor stood up at the time, remember the female deputy governor near the tail end of you?
Angela
Can't remember her name.
Halliday.
And she stood up and she said, "This is the best work in prisons I have ever seen, and the best creative output in all my years in prison work." I mean, it was a stunning success. But then, and we were scheduled, they wanted us to come back in November due to the request from the prisoners, because they wanted it, and it was your money, was it not? Prisoners' money that was used for it.
Aye.
So it's the money that you all chip in for special events and stuff. So it was prisoners' money. And they said, "We want shooters back, and we want to do slow walking." They all talked about slow walking.
Aye.
And it was scheduled for the November. We didn't hear it, and then it got closer and closer and closer. And eventually I wrote them a letter, and I said, "Guys, if we're starting in November, it need to be pretty quick. And I'm dealing here with a lot of freelancers. And if it's not happening in November, they've got to look for other work." "Oh, well, we never said we'd go ahead." I got this terrible letter back from them, and I thought, oh, fuck, there you go.
Stopping it.
Yep.
What do you think the reasons were?
No idea.
Do you think it was down to, like, obviously, because I don't know if it was the Daily Record again that wrote something about,
I don't think they did.
did they know?
No, it wasn't anything to do with publicity.
So do you think it was just down to money?
That woman with the blonde hair,
Angela?
who runs the education.
Oh, aye, I know who you're talking about. Just make that. There was absolute. I mean, that project, in a way, see if you could get in there 2 or 3 times, you could have probably taught somebody how to do that program. You could have actually taught prisoners how to do that course. Do you know what I mean? And then give the prison that. And obviously, I'd say 2 or 3 times you could have done that, and then you could have had like mentors for shooters that would have been able to kind of run that program within the prison. If it was down to money or whatever, I don't know, but it usually is down to money.
There was enough money there for us, Sean, enough money for the sentencing. There definitely was.
There's always
And
enough
particularly
money.
Idlewild, which is a better off.
It's private run into it. It's a multi-billion-pound company. It's no, as you say, it's no rocket science, and it's the beauty of seeing, even for me, like people that had been in me 5-6 years, and just seeing them guys at work, just seeing guys doing the slow walking, doing like wee Clyde and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Clyde, God rest him. Obviously he's dead now, and I loved wee Clyde, but even guys like Clyde, you're just like, I would never have thought he'd have done that, but he loved it. Absolutely loved it. And I just think it's so sad that there's nothing like, it's as if anything good that comes out, but right, and they don't want it again. And I can never understand why. The things that seem to work, they don't want. And then they'll do these courses, which in my eyes, don't do anything, like cog skills, this, whatever you want to call it. Guys are just going up and telling them what they want to hear. They're ticking boxes. Basically, what they know that you're telling lies. You know they're going to then go and tell lies to. So it's like, what is the point? There's nobody there's no reform here at all, no rehabilitation. You're not helping anybody. And then projects like Shooters come in and break barriers down so quickly, and they don't want it. It's bizarre, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we'll talk more about we'll spoke about Shooters and stuff like that. Just to kind of talk to you about you and some of the big work you've done, David. What's your kind of best film you've ever done? What's your favourite film?
Can you name a best film?
No.
Jobs are special in different ways. Jobs are special because of the people you work with, the location you're shooting in, the nature of the material, or whatever. I mean, I've just spent 5 days in Newfoundland in Canada, in St. John's, doing a Canadian comedy, a guest in a Canadian comedy series. I loved that. I had a brilliant 6 days.
Aye.
One of the best weeks of my life. Had a great time. Just loved it. Taboo was great. A Sense of Freedom was great. I enjoyed the Fisherman's Friends movies because we're just such a lovely company of actors. I loved Boy in the Striped Pajamas because we all became a family.
But there was a good message behind that. But
theatre is, the Boy in the Striped Pajamas.
Brilliant message.
Interesting, because I've spoken to a lot of the Jewish community and the survivors of the Holocaust. And they've said, yeah, well, we didn't like it because it put the emphasis on the young Jewish boy and the young Jewish boy and the young German boy. I know the young Jewish boy. I said, but that was a means to bring sympathy for for the issue. But I can understand where they're coming from.
No, of course. No, I can see where they're coming from. But the message is just that children are children, and like it was so sad on both sides. Like for the kids, do you know what I mean? Obviously, there was a bigger thing at play. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not trying to comment on that, but it's just like children shouldn't need to experience that. That's why we've got prison systems that are full, and we've got the kind of society we've got now. So even like Taboo, playing with like Tom Hardy, one of my favourite actors. What's that like? Just is play like, obviously I know you're used to it, but what's it like just with about these guys? Is it just second nature to you, David?
Aye, but A-listers are a funny breed. I mean, they're a law unto themselves. They've got to live in an ivory tower. They don't really touch normal folk, and they don't really... they don't. They just remove themselves. That's why I've never wanted to be a star. I thought you just lose touch with any kind of reality. But he's a lovely guy. He belies his image. He comes on with army gear and his big macho walk and all that, and you think he's an alpha male. But he's got very profound spiritual beliefs. He carries a wee angel in his pocket. He's a vegetarian, believes in reincarnation, hugs everybody every day. So in a sense, he belies that image he's got. I mean, he's wired.
Aye.
You know, you can't imagine him sitting in with his wee baby watching, Spotty Dog on telly on a Saturday evening. No, he's driven.
So who was I'll give you a quick. Who's the best actor that you think you've worked with?
Stephen Graham. Do you know who Stephen Graham is?
Is that Stephen Graham, the Liverpool?
Aye.
Brilliant. Played Al Capone in Boardwalk and that. I love Stephen Graham. Stephen Graham's amazing.
Stevie Graham's...
He's actually done a lot of prison films, Stephen Graham, and a lot of kind of...
He did one
stuff.
Written by Jimmy McGovern with I was in prison. They just a new one coming out about women. No, he's done some really, really powerful
stuff. What was that called? I know when you're...
Burnout? No, can't remember.
It was quite a sad film, wasn't it? It was like a wee guy hung himself, didn't he? A wee guy.
Who was it with? I can't remember. With Sean Bean? Was there no Sean Bean in it?
Sean Bean was there as well. So obviously, what's your kind of...
But to answer that question, before you go on, theatre for me is the best of the best.
Aye.
There is nothing quite like being on a stage in front of a live audience and you're challenging yourself. Now, last year I did a tour of a one-man show for 2 months. Then I did a brilliant play at the Tron called Cypress Avenue, which is one of the most challenging and important plays written in the last 25, 30 years.
Aye.
And we're bringing it back to the Pavilion. Now, that's stunning when you've got an audience in the palm of your hand on stage for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and that's nothing like it.
Well, that was going to kind of bring me to that, because obviously you've done movies, you've done TV, you've done theatre. So would you say theatre's your kind of your big love then? Would you say that's...
Aye. It's the biggest challenge. Any proper actor will tell you theatre is where you belong.
Aye.
But a lot of actors wouldn't touch about a barge pole. It's too scary.
Because if you make a mistake, you need to run with it, don't you? It's like if you can't get caught up in that mistake.
If you get it right the next night.
Aye. So is it that theatre show you just spoke about? Is that your favourite?
That's one of the favourites. I mean, Lady Macbeth, it was brilliant. Nijinsky, a player, did in London with, what was his name? Jude Law. Did it at the Donmar Theatre. It was brilliant. I played his father-in-law. It was a great piece. Stacks of them. I just love being on stage.
No, you've done. I mean, obviously, when I was researching, you're trying to kind of look. There's just far too many to even mention. You know what I mean? But there's so much. But when I watched bits and bobs. It was Weir's Way.
Oh, the documentaries.
Aye.
Hayman's Way. Did you get
to see how did that?
I love doing them. They're brilliant. If you gave me the money to make them for the next 20 years, that's what I'd do. I'd walk around Scotland talking to folk.
Aye. No, but it's just you, Davey. Just you being you into it and just being you around about Scotland. But did you see that as a bit of an honour getting to that? Because obviously Weir's Way was quite a big thing. So did you see that as a bit of an honour getting to do Hayman's Way?
Not really. It was a natural progression. You know, because I did Weir's Way with David Hayman, so I retraced his steps. That was a huge success. Then STV said, right, we're doing Hayman's Way. When Sam did, they'll get somebody else.
All right, was there a thing? Was there a hang in between?
I mean, the first one was called On Weir's Way with David Hayman, where I retraced his steps.
Right, I think I've seen that one.
And they intercut it with original bits of Tom Weir, and then me going back to talk to the same people whom he met 40 years before and all that.
Right.
Then it was so successful, then they come up with the idea of Hayman's Way, so I did it on my own. And that was like one of the top 5 programmes in the whole of ITV of last year.
Aye. Oh no, it was in it. It was brilliant.
But did you see the things I'm most proud of is like, you see my documentary on slavery.
Aye.
Slavery, Scotland's Hidden Shame. Now that's the thing I'm most proud of.
Aye.
That's a documentary. I wanted to tell that story for 10 years.
Can you tell us a bit about that? Because that was quite
well, Scotland's built on the profits from the slave trade. I mean, cotton, sugar, tobacco. And we blamed Liverpool. We said we were in denial for 200 years. Said, no, it was the English. Liverpool that ran all the slave ships, so did Bristol, London. But what didn't come out was, what came out, brought out was the fact that Liverpool was run by Scots families. The Scots ran the slave trade for Liverpool. Not for Glasgow. The Scots ran the slave trade from Bristol. We set up the banks, the insurance companies in London that funded the coffee and tea plantations and slave plantations in the Caribbean and the southern states. Glasgow was built on it. Edinburgh was built on it. The Industrial Revolution was financed by the profits from slavery. It's why we have a networked rail system across this country. Any landed estate you see with a huge big house built from the profits of slave trade, Glasgow University, you name it. Look at the street names in Glasgow.
I know.
They're all linked to slavery. It's funny, 2 years ago when Scottish women played the Jamaican women at football in the World Cup or lead up or whatever. So there were 11 black players and 11 white players on the pitch. Aye. They all had Scottish names. Because if you look through the Jamaican phone book, 2/3 of the names are Scottish. Because when slavery was eventually abolished, they wouldn't get their £20 per head compensation unless they named the slaves. They never named them, they just gave them numbers. So they all had to name them. So if my name was Alec Mackenzie, I'd go, right, your name Mackenzie, your name's Toll, your name's Sean, your name's Davy, your name's Fiona. So they were landed with these names. So now you've got all these Jamaicans who've got Scottish names.
I swear I've seen like Jamaican, the football team sometimes, and you'll have like
Jamaican
a guy
flag,
called
the
like
Saltire Cross.
Aye. It's all right. And obviously Jamaica Street. But I've seen guys playing for Jamaica before, and like obviously I can't remember, it's like David Mackay or something, and you're like that's weird. So you can have white people, Scots people walking around Glasgow today whose great grandmother was a black slave and great grandfather was a slaver. That because of how genetics change, they're white today. You can have black people walking around Scotland whose great grandfather was a white slaver and mother was a black slave. So I could retrace. Aye.
You could have a black ancestor.
Right, you've made me want to go and do that thing now. The tree. I better go back there and see. So any other kind of bits of work, just as we're coming up to the kind of end, Davey, is there any other kind of work that you would like to speak about? Because I know you've done that much.
I don't really like to talk about my work.
I know.
I'd rather talk about Spirit Aid.
You're a very humble man.
No, it's nothing to do with being humble. Just to do with more important things in life.
Aye.
Spirit Aid is far more important to me. I mean, I'm doing a series in Liverpool. I'm enjoying it. But hey, it's not going to change the world.
No.
It's not going to change the quality of anybody's life.
No.
But that trip I made to Malawi just a couple of months back after the hurricane helped keep thousands of people alive and sustain them and help them rebuild their houses and feed their kids and all that. Is far more important than whatever I do as an actor.
So have you got any kind of projects in the pipeline with Spirit Aid that anybody watching can get help with? Or?
We've always got projects, but not in the pipeline. It's really difficult. We need about 150 grand a year to sustain the project. Scotland, and we deliver dozens and dozens of food parcels every week.
Aye.
We turn on people's gas and electricity. We've got about 50 families who won't pay for fuel this winter. They're paid for by the Celtic Foundation and the Weir Group.
Aye.
Between them, they're paying for it, which is brilliant. We've got an emergency service. Somebody picks up the phone and says, I'm desperate. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't pay this, pay that. We'll help them. We'll sort them.
So where can people find this, Davey? Where can people, just Google Spirit Aid Glasgow?
Google Spirit Aid, or we've got a Twitter page. We've got a website, really bad website, because we definitely spend money on it. Now, the thing to do, the difficult bit is raising the money. Spending the money, I've got no problem with. I can spend money in Afghanistan effectively and wisely. I can do the same in Palestine or Malawi. It's just raising the money is really, really tough. Because people have got less disposable income these days. People are being more cautious because of the times we're going through.
And you've just got that many people with money who don't care.
Yeah, I get more money for Drum Chapel than I do for Bearsden, more money for Castlemilk than I do for Newton Mearns. I mean, that's
right.
Okay. Poor folk look after each other, rich folk look after themselves.
That's fascinating. That there would be more money coming out.
Yeah. Because people who are poor know what it's like to be poor.
No, I totally get the concept, but it's fascinating that there's more money comes out of working class places than the places that the money actually is, where the money actually is. So is there any kind of other stuff that's kind of close to your heart that you would like to just, obviously coming up to the end, that you would like to talk about? Just anything that's kind of happening, like round about, but even politics, anything that you just kind of want to go out there, Davey? Anything that you want to talk about?
No, I'm staying away from politics. I was heavily involved for a long, long time. But I was a member of the Labour Party up until the mid-1980s, and then they had an amazing annual conference. The rank and file decided to eradicate our weapons of mass destruction. Unilateral nuclear disarmament. This was the height of the Cold War. We were going to set every other country in the world, we were going to renounce our nuclear weapons. I was really, really brave by the membership of the Labour Party, the rank and file. I think it was 1985, 86. The leadership ignored them, went back to Westminster, tore up the resolution and put it in the bin. I just tore up my membership of the Labour Party and put it in the bin. I've never voted for them since. I've never belonged to a political party since. I was very supportive of the SNP in the beginning, in the 90s, when I directed 2 party election broadcasts for them, and I was out in the hustings with Simon and Nicola Sturgeon and stuff, but I've been so disappointed. Ultimately, the SNP have betrayed the people of Scotland nearly as much as the Labour Party did over 50 years in power in this country.
There needs to be somebody comes along. We do need saved soon, because the way it's going now, I think even Labour and that are going so far right to try and keep up with vote. I don't know, but it's just there's nobody really that you can vote for that's got that kind of humanitarian liberal outcome in it. There's outlook anymore. There's nobody with that anymore. I don't know, David.
It's not radical enough, no.
And I think it is just, I mean, I always say it's just down to, like, if somebody, I would love to see prison reform, but who's going to vote for an MSP that goes...
Nobody.
No, I mean, I know.
Nobody. Far more. Well, there are things that are far more important to people than prison reform.
And you look at energy stuff and that the new, and you talk about energy, and we're told that these energy companies are struggling and blah blah blah, and they're making
billions and billions,
biggest
and billions.
profits ever.
Aye.
And we're all struggling to put. I mean, I'm sure our energy doubled. Do you know
And
what I
we're
mean?
an energy supplying country. We've got oil, we've got gas.
I know.
It's a joke.
Or so daft, but into it, and just, I don't know. It's just, yeah, it's so sad. But as I say, it's just getting worse, and you're looking to see these people that just walk about, and you see that in Glasgow constantly. It's like it's just lost souls. As you say, nobody says hello anymore or anything. Like, there's just no sense of community, and I don't know if it's just been broke down bit by bit by bit. I don't know. I mean, you could go on and on about it. But no, that's it, David, for me. Honestly, I'd love to thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure and just an honour to call you a friend.